100 other times I can name. Why am I not dead? Why are the good ones dead? Are you ready to be the person that you can be in that multiverse of possibilities, to be your best self and bring your best self and give yourself grace? Give others grace. Give yourself some forgiveness. Give yourself some space to heal. Connect with others. We're all here healing and learning from each other. We're healing each other. Can you live your best life? And what's that look like? Last visualization now. What's that look like? Your best life. What's that look like for you? And now, what does that, you living your best life, look like for your community and the people that love you? How do they benefit? Do they want you on that worst possible timeline, or they want you on that golden timeline where you're being your best self and bringing your best self? Imagine that.
Thank you first to Colonel Tayson, or Paul, who I've known for many years, and we've been friends with members of your family for many years, and he saw some of the videos I was putting out on my social media and just said, hey, why don't you come have some of this talk here today? And so I'm super blessed to be able to be here, be able to have this talk with y'all today. How y'all hear me in the back? They asked me if I need microphones. Can you hear me? Yep. All right, I'll project a little better. All right, I'm just getting started. I'm a little nervous. I got a bunch of soldiers staring at me. So, first I want to start out just talking about my path a little bit. So, I actually grew up not far from here, small town, Boone, Iowa. Anybody know Boone? Yeah, yeah. So I was born and raised there, and I was kind of a shy, introverted, kind of nerdy kid, but I also kind of had an anger streak in me, and liked to be a tough guy. Liked to watch a lot of superheroes and Dragon Ball Z and you name it. I liked it when you could kind of vanquish your enemies and protect those that you loved, protect yourself. That really resonated with me. And as I was growing up, got into lifting weights, got into martial arts, got into sports, played wrestling, football through high school, and it was a great outlet for me. And when I was really young still, I met a friend of mine. We started out as kind of frenemies, kind of like rivals, you know. I met him at the gym, and I was one of the youngest people in the weight room at the Y there in Boone. Used to be called Heartland Health Center. And there's this other strong kid, and I didn't know him. It's because he was homeschooled, so I didn't know who he was. And he'd put a bunch of weight on the bench and start repping it out. Like, all right, I'm gonna rep that out too, you know? And we really, over time, we bonded over the fact that we just were two of the hardest, toughest. I was told I couldn't cuss today. It's a whole different military, I don't know. I'm told I can't cuss today. We used to use cuss words as like commas or or you just insert cuss words. So, but yeah, we really bonded over ultimately our traumas, but we bonded over the fact that we were two of the toughest, hardest MRFers on the planet. That's what we wanted to be. So we would talk and we would dream together about doing college wrestling or college football or something that we could just stay involved in and just kind of be as tough as humanly possible and show the world how tough we are, how valuable we are, all of that. As I'm in high school, that's when I was faced with my first suicide of somebody close to me. So I learned as I got older, there's a lot of shame, a lot of look good to the public, but have problems, don't open up, don't reach out. And anyways, I don't know the whole story. The version of it that was told to me just basically centers around shame. But you know, my uncle had felt a deep sense of shame, like he couldn't save public face, which was really important to our family. Family name and public face, that was everything. And so he went out to a place that was special to my family. He drove a van out there, and we didn't know where he was for many days, but he'd driven out this place and decided to put a shotgun in his mouth and decided to really make sure he got the job done. And he literally blew a hole, not just in his head, but in our family too. It also exposed a lot of problems that were in our family, and he left 5 children to kind of have to deal with the aftermath of that and put their family back together as best they could. Back to me and my friend Nick, we had finished high school. We were in what we called the DMAC frat house. We had a little house we'd rented. DMAC didn't really have frats, but we got as close as you could. And for 1 year after high school, we were just kind of aimless. We would go out and do these crazy runs. Me and Nick, he would do these crazy runs. He would just run to Ogden and back. Totally out of his mind. So one day, you know, I'm out drinking and I ran to Ames just to try and one-up him, but it almost killed me. It was a really dumb thing to do. But we kept talking about what we're going to do next. You know, we're at DMAC. We're not doing anything yet with our lives. So we started thinking about the military, and we got a DVD off the internet. It arrived. We were super pumped for it, and it was Ranger School. And it was just showing a documentary style, people going through Ranger School. And we said, those are some tough MRFers right there, for sure. So we need to be doing that, okay? And so we joined the military together. And I made it through infantry basic training down there at Fort Benning, made it through airborne school, but the Ranger Indoctrination Program, I passed the fitness standards, but I had an injury all through basic training where I had this hernia and my intestines were coming out more and more with the parachute rig and everything. My intestines are coming out more and more, so they said, you need to get that fixed. I'm like, I'm fine. I can keep going. Like, get it fixed. I'm like, don't kick me out of RIP. Don't kick me out of RIP, Ranger Indoctrination Program. Don't kick me out. Okay, we won't. Go get the surgery. You got it. Well, they kicked me out. So I'm crying in the colonel's office, just tears flowing. You don't understand. I got to be a Ranger. You don't understand. No, I'm sorry. You know, you're a broke dick. That's what they used to say back then. Don't know if you still say that. Probably not. And they put me on a wall. You know, I mean, they put me on a wall. They said rampant vaginitis. And somebody wrote that on there, and they just said people that couldn't make it, and they put me on that wall. So I ended up going to the 101st Airborne Division, Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and I'll start sharing some pictures of me in service here. Boom. There I am in Muqashif, Iraq. So one of the big reasons we wanted to join is we wanted to help out too. There was people in our hometown, other people we'd known that had died in the war and things like that, and we wanted to go. You know, we're not special in a way. You know, we wanted to say, we'll go out there and we'll do that too. So get deployed with the 101st, and ended up being a 14-month deployment. Before the deployment, we're training in a live fire exercise, and we're out in the field for 30 days and getting kind of tired at that point. We have a live fire exercise at night, and we're trying to get 4 people into a door as fast as we can, shoot targets with live rounds. And luckily, it wasn't me that was going in that house there. I was just pulling security on the outside, but I heard some commotion happen, and there was a friendly fire incident, basically. And so that was actually our first casualty. Wasn't even in Iraq yet. We were just getting ready. And one of the, I don't know why, I kind of asked God this so many times, why do you keep taking the good ones? You know, but this kid was just the best. Private King, he he got shot here through the arm and hit this artery, and he bled out for about 2 hours. And he was in pain for that whole 2 hours. And no matter what we were trying to do, I was RTO, I was calling, trying to get some kind of medevac. All the ranges were live, we couldn't get anything there. It was a quagmire, and so he just stayed there for 2 hours and bled out. And this is a guy that he always made too much mac and cheese at the barracks. And he'd be, oh, I made too much again, and he'd come and feed us. But he wasn't actually he knew he wasn't gonna eat 3 boxes of mac and cheese. I used to eat a lot. I could not barely get through 2 boxes. It would be a huge challenge. So he'd make 3 boxes, and he would bring it to us, and he would motivate us on runs. He could run like a gazelle, and he'd be like, this is easy for me. So, great guy. We were not, unfortunately, able to attend the funeral, and so I never got to meet his family, but you know, I'd like to see what they're up to now and what they're doing, but that really blew a hole in their life, big time, before we even deployed. So we're on our first patrol out, and the helicopters are talking to us. We're out with the 82nd Airborne, who we're relieving in Iraq, and it was apparently a person they thought was planting IEDs, had run into a house. A lot of talk on the radio. Again, I'm the RTO, so I'm trying to like keep up with this with my lieutenant. And then we start driving to the scene, and I'm thinking I'm about to go into a fight right now, like a firefight right now, first patrol. And I'm shaking like a leaf. I'm just a scared little boy. I'm not this tough guy I built myself up to be. I'm none of those things. I am shaking, I'm nervous. I was nervous before this talk a little bit today too. Not the same degree. I reminded myself, you've been doing worse things than coming out here and talking about suicide prevention with this group. But yeah, I've never been that scared in my life, for sure. But we roll up on the scene, and the helicopters had already taken care of it, so to speak. 2 Hellfire missiles in a house that this guy had run into. And apparently this house he had run into, there was a family of 13 that resided there, and so they were all collateral damage as well. Nothing there for me to fight, just a mess for us to clean up while the helicopters, those guys went and they had chow that morning, so they went and ate breakfast, you know. And a few patrols later, we're about to head out on Halloween. We're all excited, like maybe we'll give some of the kids some candy. This is just like, I don't know, 2 weeks later, something like that. And Sergeant Greasy comes up to me. Sergeant Greasy, another great, amazing guy, shows me this picture all excitedly of his newborn daughter, and beautiful little baby. And he hadn't met her yet, but man, what a proud dad he was. And this is somebody that always got up early, made sure all the trucks were working, made sure everything was working. Wasn't even necessarily his job. He just became like a mechanic in the infantry unit that we were in. So guy was always taking total, complete ownership of everything he could do. And so we head out on patrol that day, and I'd seen some suspicious activity the patrol before that in this same location, and I kept pleading in the debrief, there's something weird going on here, we need to check this out. And they're like, yeah, I wouldn't listen. And I said, you know, I'm just a E3 at this point, you know, but I'm an RTO, so I'm in these debriefs, and I'm like, we need to, I think there's something fishy about this road here. Saw some people back there. I was using this long-range kind of surveillance thing we had on our truck. And anyways, that patrol comes, and he's a vehicle in front of me, and just big explosion. The 50 cal goes flying. I remember watching a 50 cal go flying, and I thought, that's 5 KIA right there for sure. Huge explosion. Turns out Sergeant Greasy was hunched over in just such a way that he absorbed the whole blast there was this this mortar round, massive mortar round, underneath the road, dug in, and command wire, because we were jamming all the signals, right? So command wire, and he pretty much took that whole blast, broke his M4 in half, and everything. The people in the vehicle with him all suffered some brain trauma, but they ended up being okay. They actually got out. When they started coming out of the vehicle, I thought, oh my God, this is a miracle. 1, 2, 3, 4 people came out of the vehicle. Still one wasn't out of the vehicle. So they pulled him out. They pulled his just blown up body out of the vehicle, obviously KIA. But he'd basically taken that whole blast, you know, for everybody in that truck, not knowing, but the way he was just hunched over with all of his gear and armor and everything, and the way it just broke his weapon, and basically every bone in his body and everything was just broken out too. So I'm training with my unit, you know, well, I'll kind of go to, you know, as the deployment went on, I'll say this, as the deployment went on, it's slowly, instead of being the scared little boy, I just started becoming a sociopath. Way easier adaptation to make, you know, for me at the time, I thought, to where I wasn't even valuing my own life at all. Like, I was just, there would be incoming rocket fire, and me and my guys, we'd be yelling, giving them corrections. Drop 50, add 100 to the enemy, right? Trying to get them to take us out, like, would have been great. I remember walking through, I don't know if it's sniper fire or just random fire or what, but it's cracking in front of me, and I walked to a vehicle just lackadaisically to get an MRE, and I was just like, I'm just getting an MRE. Sounds like a little whip cracking when bullets are cracking in front of you. And I'm just walking through, one cracked right there. I'm like, oh, missed me. And I just get my MRE. I had no value for my life anymore at that point. And I will also mention this. I know I'm not doing a very good job of going linearly, so I'm circling back a little bit. But we actually caught, 9 days later, we caught the person that blew up Sergeant Greasy. So we did a nighttime raid, busted in his family's house late at night, scared the daylights out of their livestock and their family. And we detained this guy, and I don't know how to put this, like, told not to cuss, and I don't know what all I can say, you know, but I'm just gonna say, like, before that patrol, I'm thinking, I'm gonna cut this guy's balls off and feed it to him, you know, when I catch this guy. You know, he just took out Sergeant Greasy, who just had a newborn baby, daughter. And then the morning comes, and I'm looking at this guy, thinking these mean thoughts, and I just stared deep into his eyes. It seemed like he's sitting there on the ground, detained. He's scared, thinks he'll never see his family again. And I just stared into his eyes. Eventually, I saw myself looking back at me. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody, but this was just another person caught up in this quagmire, same as we were. In fact, that IED he planted that killed Sergeant Greasy was in retaliation for the Hellfire missiles that took out that family of 13 in their neighborhood. So he thought, I'm protecting my community. I thought, I'm protecting my community. What are we doing here? Are we all just pawns just fighting each other? What are we doing? And so instead of the aforementioned treatment, I stared at his eyes for a while, and he asked me for a drink of water. I just handed him my water, and he drank that. So instead of the thoughts I was thinking before, I just thought, here's this scared man just like me, and I can just give him a drink right now. You know, it's like all I can do for him right now. So here I am that same morning. This is actually taken that same morning. I don't know if this is his truck or what, But this is at that house. And so there I am, looking tough, right? So here I am. My unit, then after I got back from Iraq, my wife, who I'd married 3 days before I deployed, we're still married, just celebrated our 16th anniversary, got 2 little girls ourselves. My whole command was like, what are you doing? They didn't know her. They what are you doing? You're making a huge mistake. A lot of Joes were making big mistakes around that time, but I knew I wasn't. You see, she'd waited up on me. She was a senior, I was a junior at Boone, and she would wait for me after football games in the parking lot, and she was just the sweetest person I ever met, and she taught me how to love. I didn't even really know that emotion without her. And she taught me something else that was really important, that I had value. I didn't really think that I did have any value or that I was lovable. And here's this person that, even with my scars and everything else, she still decided to love me. Well, she now had this long deployment that was as hard on her, honestly, as it was on me. But she had our townhouse all set up outside of Fort Campbell. When I got home, hey, now we can finally be real married couple, this and that. And it was a little chaotic because I'm back there and I'm grinding my teeth almost out of my skull every night in my sleep. My heart keeps stopping and I think it's just, I'm dying. You know, I don't know how to explain that. And at night I would have dreams of, you see, I got my combat infantryman badge because that was very early in deployment. Got my combat infantryman badge off of that IED attack that killed Sergeant Greasy. So I had dreams reoccurring where he would be knocking on my door. It felt very real too. I would come downstairs, answer the door, and it's Sergeant Greasy, and he looks exactly like how he looked when he got blown up. And he would hand me my combat infantryman badge, and he would say, "Congratulations, you earned this." So I was proud of that badge. But it cost somebody else a lot. So I didn't know how to deal with it. I wish I would have had some good mental health service, or I wish I would have been brave enough to kind of open up and just raise my hand, say I'm struggling. If I'm struggling on, moving or fixing my leaky roof, you reach out. But I didn't really do that. Luckily, though, I found meditation. And I know it sounds kind of corny maybe, but all I knew is breathing was good for me. And I started learning breathing was actually curing my road rage. I'd feel it come up here, I'd breathe it down, and that would help with some of the rage I was having, some of the road rage and other rages I was having. I said, wow, that's really powerful. I've been breathing my whole freaking life. I didn't know breathing was such a powerful mechanism for controlling your whole autonomic nervous system. And so I got into this kind of mindfulness meditation, something called transcendental meditation, and that was the beginning of my spiritual path, really. I think the beginning of my spiritual path was probably meeting my wife, feeling like I have value and I'm lovable. But I also think it might have been staring at that guy's eyes. That might have been the beginning, but definitely learning to meditate, breathing, these are the things that really started to help me out. And I went on to continue to be a high achiever. And so you got to think about the mindset of somebody who, what's the psychology there? Why you want to be a high achiever? Why you want to make a bunch of money? Why you want to be important? So I had these traumas that I was fueling my life off of fear, pain, insecurity. And I was slowly learning through my wife and through other people and connections I was making how to fuel my life off of love, which is even scarier path to try to get down sometimes. But I was gonna stay with my unit into Afghanistan, and my wife told me, because I trained up with these guys, right? Like, these were my brothers. Like, I was going to go to Afghanistan with them. She's like, look, you go do another deployment. I already seen what this one did to you. Like, this was a 14-month deployment. This was a 10-month turnaround into the worst spot in Afghanistan next for a year. And she's like, and a bunch of 30-day field exercises and stuff like that in between, so no real rest. We were the no slack battalion, so it was not battalion, but no slack. Can't even remember all the unit designations, but we were no slack. No respite, no request for respite. You know, that's what we said. So we stayed working, and I said, fine, I'll get out. I went to college, checked out of the military on, I just barely didn't get stop loss. I checked out on a Friday, and I was in a college classroom on a Monday, University of Missouri. Culture shock, huge culture shock, right? All these kids, all life going on, all very normal seeming, but seemed like nobody really understood what's really going on in the world. People just in here taking these classes. I had acquired a lot of discipline in the military, and I was already kind of a nerdy kid. So I went through, when we were at University of Missouri, my wife was like, I'm not really digging it here. I'm like, you know, me either. We should move out of here, but I'm going to finish I planned on doing an undergrad and an MBA. And I said, let me finish that up. So I actually did my undergrad in half time, took a huge course load, and did my graduate degree in half time. And the people that made the MBA program were dismayed that somebody could do it in 1 year. They didn't even know that's possible, but I'd hacked the system. I figured out you could do it in 1 year. So I did 2 internships, passed the CFA exam, which has a very low pass rate. It took me 9 months of studying. And not joking, being very literal, a stack of books this high that I read through. I did 2 internships, had a 4.0 on both degrees, got a designation top of my class. For my MBA program, I was doing MMA fights. I took a pro MMA fight. I ended up stopping that after about 15, 16 fights because I was taking so much head damage. I wasn't a very good striker. I was more of a grappler. I'd take him down, try and catch a choke, try and catch an arm bar. But my head movement was trash. So I was taking a lot of blows to the head. And so also decided to get out of that. I didn't really see a good path to that. I was finishing up my degree. But I was an uber high achiever, you know. And am I bragging here today? Maybe I'm stroking my own ego a little bit, but what's the psychology of this person, you know? What's the psychology? This is actually a strong person? Maybe they built themselves up that way. And you know, I went on to have amazing career success, entrepreneurial ventures I've been involved in my banking career, got promoted 5 times in 10 years, and just went right to the top. Everything seemed easy breezy to me. But as I kept achieving these goals, more and more emptiness inside me. And I achieved them all too fast, like a dog catching a car, not knowing what to do with it. Oh, you caught it. And so achieving all these goals, making more money than I ever thought I would make, boom, deep pit of despair and depression. Didn't see that coming. I thought it was supposed to be all happy and rainbows and stuff when you started making a lot of money. I thought money would solve problems, you know? So I had that mindset. And so I was feeling this depression, and I steered into it. I said, no, I'm a soldier, I'm a this, I'm a that. Whatever I was identifying with, I'm going to get through this. I'm going to work harder. I started working so hard, and I had a dream family at this point. My second daughter was just born. Everything was going good for me, almost too good. It overwhelmed me. And ended up working so hard, I stopped sleeping. If you know anything about psychology, you know that we actually need sleep. I don't know if you know that. I recommend everybody gets 7 to 8 hours every night. But I stopped sleeping, and that's actually a way that they induce schizophrenia in people. Is if you're not schizophrenic, don't sleep long enough, you will. And definitely I'd hallucinated plenty of times in the military due to lack of sleep. I felt like that was really kind of wearing on me too, but I just stopped sleeping and I started feeling more and more energy, I'm like, hey, this is actually amazing. Maybe I can just do anything. I can just not sleep. And slowly stopped really even eating or caring about earthly things at all. And yeah, long story short, I almost died several times, only because of my wife. Am I still alive? And I ended up being institutionalized for 5 days, not really knowing who I was or where I was at or what was going on. And the only thing that made sense to me is my wife came in, visited me one day. She thought she'd completely lost her husband. But she came and visited me one day and brought me a picture of the kids. And all I knew that was real, I had no idea what was real anymore. I just lost my SHIT completely, okay? But I did know that one thing was real, was love. And the love I had for her and my kids. So I just started trying to reassemble some kind of reality that I could cope with and build on that love and focus on that. And even though after 5 days, honestly, I should have been in there another 10 days after that, but I just kind of put on a face and said, I'm ready to leave, and just said, I'm going to act normal, and I'm going to leave. Slowly, with a lot of grace from a lot of friends, and by opening up more and sharing my struggles, because it was impossible to not open up at that point because people saw me completely lose my freaking mind, embarrass myself worse than I've ever been embarrassed ever. So I rebuilt myself. Somehow I went right back to teaching, my job. Of course, I have way too many things always going to this day. But yeah, I had my job, teaching, jiu-jitsu, coaching, competing, all of that going on. And I kept going. I was good, I was feeling okay. But then I had a really tough time just a few years ago, and I had 2 businesses that I'd started up, and they were both failing basically, for different reasons. And I was working nonstop to keep 2 businesses going, a corporate career. I'd stopped teaching, I was still teaching jiu-jitsu. I was taking on ADCC trials, which is basically our Olympic trials in our sport. I'll kind of cut to my jiu-jitsu slide here, my jiu-jitsu photo, so you guys can see that. I know you'll like this. Here I am exploding somebody's knee. He was actually fine, he just tweaked it. I like it when I can get a good fear panic tap, but don't actually hurt anybody. I do these competitions for money and at the pro level, and people are crazy out there, and they're trying to hurt me, and I like it when I don't hurt them and I win the match. And so he was fine. I've had people before that not tap to my heel hooks. I'm really known for my heel hooks. And this is a heel hook here. And yeah, so his toes are pointed this way. And by throwing my hips in to his knee here, it's going to explode out that way. So I always hate it when people make me actually hurt them, because part of my spiritual path was I swore off violence many years ago. And so I only do this consensual violence, I guess, is what I call it. Because I still have that freaking dog in me. I don't know what it is. And that dog has to walk. Got to take that dog on a walk. I'm much better off when I do. Jiu-jitsu I've been doing for over 18 years now. And that's always been a mental health practice for me, first and foremost. And I say that to everybody. It forces me, who's kind of introverted, out. I need other people to train. I can build a community there over time. I've watched the community grow here in town and in this state. A lot of tough people in this state. If you didn't know, Iowa got a lot of tough people, a lot of great wrestling legacy here. Now we're getting some of the D1 wrestlers into jiu-jitsu and MMA, and there's a lot of cross-training going on. There's amazing stuff going here. So I'm trying, at 37, I'm trying to keep all the things working so that I can keep competing, because I love it, and I love that it makes me try and be the best version of myself. And I've learned almost everything I need to know about life too through jiu-jitsu in some way or another. So it forces me out, and I don't like to hurt people. I prefer not to. It's disgusting if I'm in a tournament and somebody's not tapping to something. I'm like disgusted inside. I'm like, please tap to this. Please, please don't make me do this. But this guy did tap, and he was okay. But I went on and also by facing my fears, I mean, I was scared of heights. That's why I did airborne school. I was scared of dying, so I went to Iraq. I was scared. So actually running at my fears was huge for my growth. Running at things that scared me. And public speaking was one of those things. And so at 23, I decided to teach college classes. I had the offer and the opportunity to do that. And from there, I've been speaking more in public. Here I am speaking in New York at an expo there. And I've spoke on a variety of topics. This is my first time speaking on this topic today. So anyways, I've had a blessed life. And I think that all the things that happened to me through my life were all great lessons, and things that I've kind of forgiven myself in the ways I need to forgive myself. I've kind of forgiven others in the way I've needed to forgive others, and see why insert belief system, insert universe, God, insert that, laid out this path for me. Oh yeah, and I started this podcast and social media brand. I called myself To Hold You. And my videographer back there, Brian, helps me out with my podcast. And that is really how Paul, just because I'm being raw and real on all these content I'm trying to make, that's how he really reached out to me and said, hey, you should speak on this topic. And it's been overwhelming. I just have a small little YouTube subscriber base, small little Instagram, but it's been overwhelming the amount of support and the amount of messages I get from people. Oh, this changed my life. Change your life? Like, that's insane. I'm just out here talking. But that's really what we need. We need to talk to each other. And honestly, I think that's why we're here, to learn from each other, talk to each other, share experiences. Why else could we possibly be here? So this is kind of what has led me to more speaking and recording myself speaking more, which I didn't really want to do. Like I said, I'm more of an introvert, and I steered into it because I steer into my fears, and I keep finding growth on the other side of that. Okay, that's my path. So now I'm going to talk about a topic very near and dear to my heart. I don't know if you expected to see this word up here today, karma. So you may have some preconceived notions of what karma is, especially in this society. We have this view that karma is you do something bad happened to you. Karma got you, you know. It's a very kind of shallow understanding of this term. It's a very old term, and it actually it really just means like memory. So if you ever think karma and you just think memory. Now, there's memory in your body. There's the DNA. It's got all the instructions for life in it. If I eat a piece of bread, my body knows how to turn that into a human being. So who's smarter, me or my body? I think my body's way smarter than I am. I'm just talking to you from like my frontal lobe up here. Not that smart compared to all the rest of your brain, all the rest of your central nervous system, all the rest of your body. And that's why breathing, I found out, was so important, is because my body actually has this memory in it, these traumas in it. We're holding them inside of our body physically. It's a system. Karma also is this information flow that spans generations. Okay? So it can take on different forms. When we talk about trauma, we're usually talking about intergenerational trauma. What did your parents do to you? What did those parents do to them? What did somebody do to you to make you feel like a victim? Then what did you do in response? What happened? it goes back to the first monkey throwing the first rock at another monkey, boom, hitting him in the head. He's mad now. He beats up some other animal, and it cycles and cycles. It's memory. And we don't really know who started this karma. It's like a recording that just plays over and over. And it can play out through generations, but it can also play out inside your own head. So this is the two types that I like to talk about, is you have intergenerational karmic structure. That's, I call trauma, because there's just people spewing their unhealed selves out on everyone else and causing more and more trauma, okay? And that all just traces back and traces back. Who can you really be mad at? Your parents were probably doing the best they could. Oh, find out later, my parents had it worse even than I did. They moved the needle an inch. Great. They actually gave me breathing room. You keep tracing that back, maybe that was even worse for them. Worse for them, worse for them. So we're all kind of chewing through our karma. And you can either put your hands up and surrender and say, I'm just going to do drugs. I've been on that path. I'm just going to do drugs, and I'm just going to check out. Stuff's too hard. Another thing that I learned from, there's a survey of people that had multiple biographies written about them, and 75% had childhood trauma. There is CIA, when they're recruiting their top agents, they're looking for just the right amount of childhood trauma, just the right amount. Those are going to make the best agents. They need to fill some kind of void. They need to fill some kind of love. That dog is just in them permanently, you know, whatever it is. So they've actually figured this out even at the CIA level. But it's not something that you can really avoid karma. Stuff happens to you, and how you're going to respond to it means everything. How you're going to respond to it. That happens inside of you. Is it the karma intergenerational trauma, or is it the other type where society gave you messages and these things are playing in your head? Or something traumatic happened and it's playing in your head? The patterns that control your mind. The patterns. What are those? Another form of information flow. Another form of memory. Another form of karma. Playing out. How are you going to meet that challenge? Are you going to let your life be a recording and just play the recording all the time and say, this is me, poor me? Or are you going to be a spiritual warrior? Are you going to actually try and chew through some of this karma and make it better for the next generation, or make it better for the people around you? So if you'll humor me just for a short time, if you feel so inclined, I would like us to do just a little quick meditation on this. So if you feel so inclined, feel free to close your eyes just for a little bit. I want you to think back. What are some of those patterns that control your mind? Let's trace it back. Somebody do something to you that make you feel unloved, not valuable, scared, confused. How did you feel in that moment? Why were they doing that? Did you do something to make it worse? Did you respond in anger? How did you meet that challenge? Did you fail that challenge? Did you lash out? Did you spew your own karma back out at others? Do we have to maintain this victim status to that? Now's the hard part. Hard part's coming. Can you see the lesson in it? Can you see why you might have needed some of that information to be your best self? Are you ready? Not all of you will be ready today, but maybe this will just be the start of it. This is the really hard part. Can you forgive? Can you forgive those who did not know what they were doing? They were just flapping in the winds of karma, just spewing their own cycles out on you. I already said that's the hard part, but now it's the hardest part. The hardest part for me, anyways. Can you forgive yourself for how you responded? Can you forgive yourself and move on and do better and take the lesson? Can you move on and live your best life? Is there a multiverse of possibilities out there? If there is, there's a bunch of them where I'm dead. I should have been dead I don't know how many times. I was in a vehicle rollover too in Iraq, filled up with water, tiny bit of air to breathe. I don't know why I didn't die that day. Super, super scary. 100 other times I can name. Why am I not dead? Why are the good ones dead? Are you ready to be the person that you can be in that multiverse of possibilities, to be your best self and bring your best self and give yourself grace? Give others grace. Give yourself some forgiveness. Give yourself some space to heal. Connect with others. We're all here healing and learning from each other. We're healing each other. Can you live your best life? And what's that look like? Last visualization now. What's that look like, your best life? What's that look like for you? And now, what does that, you living your best life, look like for your community and the people that love you? How do they benefit? Do they want you on that worst possible timeline, or they want you on that golden timeline where you're being your best self and bringing your best self? Imagine that. The impact and the ripple of one person. We need you here with us. Thank you for doing that meditation with me. Thank you so much. We need you here with us. You matter. Little science joke. Little science joke here, because you are matter. So, you matter. Your life has these ripple effects on others. If you decide to end it short, self-delete, short-term solution, drugs, short-term solution. What's the hard work? Are you ready to be a real warrior and meet the final frontier that is your own healing journey, that is your own karmic path, that is you trying to be the best you out there in all the infinite possibilities? We need your unique light here, and we don't mind your shadow coming with that light. We'll accept that too. You're worthy, just who you are, right now. You're valuable. You are worthy of love. If you're afraid of opening up to other people, how would you feel if you found out somebody killed themselves because they were too worried about your judgment on them? What would you tell them? Tell that to yourself. Tell that to yourself now. We want you here with us. In fact, you're here for a reason. You're here to inspire other people by what you overcame. If you got something that you think you can't overcome, reach out. If you think every day is just too dark for you, there's no way of being happy again, that's a pattern playing in your mind. It's a story. You're the author. Write a different chapter. Anytime. You're writing it every day. I want to talk on this real quick. I had to get one chart or graph in here because I'm a huge nerd. Well, I thought I'd get one in here. So, I don't want to trivialize things down to gender differences and this and that, but what I do want to say is suicide rates in the US, what's the psychology? I asked you before, what's the psychology up here of the speaker? What's the speaker psychology, right? But what is the psychology of other men who specifically I've been mentoring, reaching out to over the years, trying to help out? What's their psychology? Well, why are men so much more successful in this department? They're even more, they're playing that recording. Tough guys. We don't cry. Nope. I got to be a rock. I don't need to reach out. I'm not struggling. It's no big deal. No big deal. Yeah, women get into that mindset too. But that's much more indicative of a lot of men I've been talking to. And so you see it then in the stats. Whether you're a man or a woman, not reaching out will get you killed, and men are out here killing themselves at a 4x higher rate because they got even more of these things playing in their head from society. Be strong. Don't reach out. My friend that I joined the military with, yeah, I went on to be a high achiever. He went on to be an extremely high achiever. This guy, one of the most decorated in the Army. 7 deployments, Ranger Recon, high-speed missions all the time, right in the thick of it all the time. He went on that war junkie path that my wife got me out of. I would have loved to stay on that war junkie path because at least I felt something. At least I could feel something, even if it's fear. That's all I kind of knew. Fear, anger, good, I'll run on that. I'm feeling something. I'm alive. I'm an adrenaline junkie. He stayed on that war junkie path, and I knew there would be a day when he would really need me, and I said, I will not let him down. I will not let that battle buddy behind. So back to a few years ago when my life has fallen apart in a lot of ways, I lost 80 to 90% of my net worth. And I was just kind of spiraling myself, but my friend, during that same time, is reaching out to me with nightly phone calls. He's trying to get out of the military. And I said, I'll always take these calls. He successfully pushed everyone else out of his life because he was afraid of opening up, except for me and his mom. Still took his phone calls. Some of those phone calls, I didn't know if I was about to hear a gun go off in the middle of it. So I was mentally prepared for that every time. I had to offload a lot of my traumas to get him to open up, and it reopened up a lot of my traumas that I thought were gone and behind me, telling him some of my worst stories. And that's when I started having some phone calls with Paul here too. So Paul knows about this. I started offloading some of this to Paul and started to get some advice, trying to figure out how to best serve as his friend. And it wasn't enough, you know. I couldn't save Private King, I couldn't save Sergeant Greasy, and man, I was going to save this one. We were going to keep him alive, we were going to get him on a good track. Look at my life. I almost felt guilty my life was so good compared to his. 2 beautiful daughters. And so while I'm having these phone calls with him, kind of reopened up all these traumas. And my youngest daughter, super excited, comes and brings me this picture she had drawn, as she normally does. They love art. They're huge artists. My wife's an artist. I'm the nerd. I took all the math classes. She took all the art classes. And so she kind of balances me out in that way. My youngest daughter brings me this picture, and she doesn't know why Daddy went quiet and left the room. Couldn't handle it. So I hurt her feelings bad that day because she didn't know why I wasn't excited about that drawing. You see, that drawing she drew looked exactly like a drawing we found in that house of that family of 13 that was killed. Just the same type of doodle made by an excited little girl And I couldn't stop myself from thinking that little girl that was blown up in that house, that morning, she might have brought that picture to her dad just as excitedly. Look at my drawing, Daddy. So, still gets me to this day, thinking about how people of Iraq, us, there was no enemy there. Kind of. I used it in quote marks. I kind of look at it like I do in jiu-jitsu now, like, oh, I have an enemy. I'm always making friends with these people. We're trading social media accounts afterwards. Hey, and I make friends with these people after we're out there trying to choke the life out of each other. Because I got a broader perspective now. And so I got these lessons in my life now. And back to my friend Nick, no matter what I did or said, just didn't seem like we were finding solutions for him. And he was spiraling bad. And I didn't know, many people from his unit either killed themselves, murder-suicide, mass shooting, death by cops. So he had to deal with all this. He said, all my friends are dead. So they really went through it in a bad way, and they didn't have good outlets and ways to communicate. And he felt like I would be judging him and seeing him as weak. He thought I would think that this guy was weak. Are you kidding me? He said, I'm good, and he'd be crying, and I'd say, keep it up. I love you, brother. Let's talk. Let's keep talking. He'd done a lot of work to find that his number one trauma was his vulnerability and not being able to address his vulnerability. You see, we weren't high achievers. We were scared little boys. We weren't tough guys. We were insecure. And we were afraid to open up about it. So, we couldn't save him. And we buried him last year. Full military honors. Some of the Rangers flew out there. They talked about how this was one of the hardest MRFers they'd ever met. And I said, I know, because when we were kids, we said, we're the hardest, toughest MRFers on the planet. Nobody's going to hurt us again. Nobody's going to hurt the ones we love again. It's our shield. Tough guys. We don't have problems. We don't have any problems. We're good. So what we need to do is you need to face your fear of reaching out if you're struggling. You want to face down enemy fire? Fine. Paul and I have been there, done that. You want to face down IEDs? You want to face down almost drowning? I really didn't want to drown. I was like, of all of them, please, not drowning in this nasty water. Almost happened. Jump out of an airplane? Yeah, it's scary. You want to know the scariest thing you do if you want to be a real warrior? You want to be a real warrior? Be vulnerable. Raise your hand. Raise your hand if you're struggling. You don't have to right now. Sorry. I'll raise mine. Okay? Raise your hand. I am a human being. I have these problems. I can't control these patterns in my mind anymore. I can't stop self-destructive activity anymore. You need help moving? Sure. Get in the group text. Text all your buddies. Need help moving. Demons are coming at you? You think about hurting yourself? Every stinking day just seems so freaking dark. There's no light at the end of the freaking tunnel. I've been there. Raise your hand and tell somebody. So we know. Give us an opportunity. Even if you still think You want to end your life, and you're unlovable. You raise your hand, you'll find out. Tell everybody. Put it on social media like I do now. Tell everybody. Tell everybody all your insecurities. Let us know. We want you here with us. You'll find out. You'll find out your impact. You'll find out you're going to leave a huge hole, a huge gaping hole if you leave us on this earth. The world is better with you in it. So if you have that courage, if you have that level of commitment and courage, and you want to be a warrior for real, you'll go all the way and you'll do that too, when you need to. Or even if you don't think you need to. Oh, my problems are small compared to this person over there. Don't play that game. Losing game. Compare yourself to others on anything. Losing game. I had people tell me, oh yeah, I struggled a bit, but I've never been deployed like you and this and that. Losing game. I call it the manliness Olympics, but you can call it whatever. That's a game where they get all last place. Trying to be the toughest dude on the planet, losing game too. No use. All the toughest people on the planet are dead. Don't go compete with them. Raise your hand and tell us you're human. And when you do that, you may find there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Your best life is waiting for you. All you gotta do is reach out, get help. We're all here. All your goals are on the side of another connection. I find that in business, in jiu-jitsu. Oh, somebody helped me with a little technique here. Good. Hey, if you're struggling, all your goals are on the side of a connection with another human being. Make the connection. In the darkest hour, when the demons come, call on me, soldier, and we will fight them together. When you live your best life after that, think of the possibilities. Think of the impact you can have on others. Maybe someone else is struggling later on. You made it through, so you're there. You're there for them. I ask myself, why am I alive? Maybe that's part of it. Help others. I know that's when Paul and I were talking about this at the beginning of the talk. I know that's when I'm feeling best, when I'm out moving my body, when I'm out helping other people. It's the ultimate antidepressant. So it must be why we're all here. Thank you for coming to my talk.